Lovely to see you, James. For those that don't know, James and I have a long professional history. We worked together back in our early careers in British Airways, and there's no one I'm more delighted to see on camera to share this interview. The interview, as I mentioned in the opening piece, is our platform to talk about the values that we learn about in life, lessons that life teaches us, and when the demands of all the modern society is placed, if we can filter and cut through it, what really, really matters. And so I'm really looking forward to this chance to chat with you, James. But before we kind of get into some of the questions, what I wanted the audience to hear from you is a little bit of your story, why you are the man you are today, what has shaped your career and your leadership lessons, so that we can just get to know you a bit better.
No, thank you, Kate, and thank you again for the offer for the conversation. It's really important for me, given where we've come from and where we're going, that we have these opportunities to share our experiences with one another, and I really value that. So thanks for the invitation. But of course, for me, it all started back in the mid to late 80s when I joined British Airways, where we met. British Airways was quite an inspirational place in terms of what I was trying to achieve, and what I didn't even know what I wanted to achieve back in those early days in my early 20s. But for me, it was very much around the travel bug, getting experiencing, traveling the world. And I always remember a voice used to say to me, if ever you're going to travel, try to get paid for it. Don't cover the cost of traveling yourself. And that always stuck with me, and I tell my children that now. So working for British Airways was absolutely the most incredible opportunity that I had in terms of my career, and I learned so much in my early days. And of course, that's where we met. So that was the early 80s, mid to late 80s when we started at British Airways. And indeed, travel was part of what we did. We were traveling all over the world. We were meeting people. We were eating and drinking, and we were enjoying life's finer things. And of course, putting that into some kind of context and making a career out of that was the transition that we all tried to embark on. So I was there, goodness me, at British Airways for probably 10, 11 years, I think it was, and then I jumped ship and went across to Virgin Atlantic. Why did I do that? I felt the opportunities were greater at that point. I thought the opportunities to work with a more aspirational and entrepreneurial environment was something that sort of sat with my aspirations pretty well, and we had the most amazing time. So I oversaw food and beverage development for after British Airways for Virgin Atlantic, and did that for about 4 or 5 years. So that was a really interesting part of the development. So quite a lot to talk about there, a lot to explore and get to the bottom of, but that was really where it all started, I think.
Yeah. And carry on in terms of that, there was that stage of life where career was kind of chasing where the innovation and the energy was, but you took it further, didn't you?
It did, absolutely it did. And I think for me, what was interesting was the people that I was working with. And that really established the aspirations I had for, I would call it non-commercial career development. So effectively, I went on my own. So I left Virgin Atlantic. I had some food knowledge. I had some catering background. I understood a bit about wine. I certainly knew what I enjoyed about wine. And we felt that we could do it ourselves. So my partner and I bought a very small restaurant up in the edge of the Lake District that we turned into a quite a popular little bistro. We ran for about 4 years. The highlight of which was being recognised for the Northwest Fine Food Awards, which was wonderful. We had a tremendous little waiting list for the restaurant. So it was really fascinating, that the motivation behind trying to do something like that's probably one of the hardest industries, I think, having done it, making some kind of success of running a restaurant. So that was really life-changing for me. Incredibly hard work, long hours. But the motive, and we'll talk about that, because I think since we've had these conversations, we've understood what's important about motivation and focusing on drive and determination and core strength, and understanding the product that meets with others' expectations. And it all came about from the time sort of gaining feedback, understanding what people were trying to do and what they wanted. So it was a really interesting time.
Yeah, I sort of sense from those phases of career, something about needing to explore and know your boundaries and your potential. And so to sort of stay, it would have been easy to stay in a sort of safe career of, your sort of first, steps in with British Airways. But there was something in you that needed to test the boundaries of what could be achieved through all the potential you had earlier in your career.
And I think that's really important because I'm possibly one of those that embraces change. Not possibly, I do embrace change and ask myself the question all the time: what if?
Mm,
Is that grass greener over there? How
mm,
do we explore that? How do we look at that? What is the opportunity? And I'm never long satisfied in a particular position. I want to continue to strive to do more things, to challenge myself. And that's a trait that I've sort of developed in life because for me, the reward and repercussions, if you like, of challenging myself and succeeding, and we'll talk about success because that can present
mm,
itself many different ways. It's not necessarily simply about receiving money or material goods and products. It's about measuring the expectation of something you're about to embark on and determining how well you have achieved based on that expectation. And within the restaurant business, it was a tiny little restaurant. Within that restaurant business, my aspirations were to get a little following within the village that we operated in. That's all we wanted to do. We wanted people
mm,
to join us. We wanted people to come and have dinner with us, and we wanted them to go away absolutely delighted with something that they hadn't experienced before. And for me, that was success. Success
mm,
then presented itself in a financial situation, which was great, but it was never the driver for me. It was never about chasing money. And I think for me, that was a huge lesson. If you can stack all of those other aspirations in place, measure or aspire to measuring things that you feel are important in the journey you're about to take, rather than chasing simple success, which I
mm,
think many of us uh, don't really fully understand. If we're just chasing money, then never go into the sort of businesses that we've done. That's not going to
mm,
provide necessarily the amount of output that you need. It's about
mm.
fulfilling elements of your
Yeah,
life. It's about providing that satisfaction that we had. So for me, that was important.
yeah. And I'm seeing a sort of a life path that started off with high curiosity to explore what was possible. And at what point, does it sort of flip over to valuing in this kind of picture of success what personal contentment looks like? Because what you described is that sort of that money was kind of the obvious, easiest first thing to go after, but somehow it, whilst it we can't ignore it, it didn't
Mm,
become the sort of anchor for your life. There was something about in that sort of village, creating a community, sharing your passion for food, offering the experience of service became more content making
mm.
than the chase the money. When
And I
did that
think
sort of when did it pivot? When did it pivot?
for me, it was around setting those expectations. I think everyone has to do that in their career. What are your expectations? What are you trying to achieve? And then really being honest with yourself and asking if they're realistic.
Mm,
Um, and I hear lots of people tell lots of other people to chase their dream. It's really important. You've got to have some kind of aspiration
mm,
and vision, whatever that might be, at least a plan of some kind, setting it out because you can measure success against that plan.
mm,
And that's what we started to do. So we had adjusted our expectations. We lived in the most beautiful part of the world,
mm,
and we enjoyed walking and climbing mountains and dogs and all of those simple pleasures in life that we felt that after, I'm going to call it the rat race. It's not the rat
mm,
race, but it was a very busy pace of life working within the airline industry and traveling the world, and very demanding in its own rights, as you well know because you've done it.
mm.
And
Yeah,
we wanted to park that, and we wanted to transition into a place whereby we could enjoy some of the nicer things. So that's why we moved to the Lake District. There was no other reason to do it apart from the fact that we loved it there. So your
mm,
question was about this pivot, and for me it was all around people. And we're in the hospitality industry. We continue to be working with people all the time, and for me it was that realization of recognizing that I had, um, I suppose, to a degree, um, sentiment for others within the hospitality world, and recognizing that was part of my maturity, I think my professional maturity, that seeing that or needing others, relying on others to deliver that aspiration was of paramount importance as I recognized the development within the restaurant business. In other words, if you're working with people that aren't on your page, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a lot about how I've engaged with people and how I've worked with people throughout my career, because I think that's a really important part of this. If you can understand the integration of others into your aspirations, then you stand a chance of achieving them. And until you really understand what makes people or motivates people to work with you on a aspiration, then life's very difficult. And what the lesson I learned, and this is something that through all the years that we've worked together, the lesson I learned was that you must always learn. You must always look for a learning opportunity, however dark it is, however unhappy you are in a place of work, however happy you are in a place of work. You must always draw strength from the fact that you can learn from others. And it may be as simple as never displaying the same traits that you see in a manager that you report into ever again. That's a great opportunity to turn a negative into a positive. And we've all been there. We've all been there. We've
Yeah.
all worked with really tricky people that are demotivating and depressing and turn your professional world into a really dark place. But draw strength from the fact that you can learn from them. That would be one of my first
Yeah,
recommendations.
that
Yes.
spotlight on learning brings up two things for me. One is to take the opportunity to learn. However, learning isn't just I take on information, it's what you do with that information. Do I integrate it into my way of being and have the humility to maybe drop some behaviors and thoughts and beliefs from before and allow myself to that, I think you call it professional maturity, but that idea of being able to grow is the second piece of it. It's not just enough to learn, it's to what do you do with that learning?
And review it as well, because there's time within a stressful and difficult work environment, elements of how you wish to present yourself may be dropped. It could be stress related, it could be a customer that makes you feel very uncomfortable, it could be any number of different things, it could be pressures outside of work that will impact your ability to deliver that professional aspiration.
Mm.
But then review it afterwards and have the time every day to say, how did today go? Did I deliver my demeanor in the manner in which I wanted to? Did I make my customers feel as good as I possibly could do? Were my colleagues motivated by my enthusiasm as much as I wanted them to be? Or actually, was I a complete nightmare to work with? But if you have that review, it could take you a minute every day. Have that review and say, yes, today was a good day because. I think that's very powerful. And you talked about it, and I talked about it. Learning is so important every day. Learn from something, whether it's a
Yeah.
professional opportunity or whether it's something you see on TV, but just be humble. You use that word. Be humble enough to stop and question yourself. Because I talk a lot about it in various events I go to. You will continue to learn until the day you die. And
Mm.
don't assume you know everything. There is always something that you won't understand or you won't have learned, especially in the hospitality world. There's a customer's unpredictability as they step through the door of a small restaurant like ours. You have no idea what they're going to say. You have no idea what their aspirations are. So you have to manage that
Mm.
and be ready to be humble. And I think one of the things that we always talk about more than anything is that being humble is important and being kind is extra specially important, but don't be pushed around either. Stand your
Okay.
ground with as much humility as you can. I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, so there's kindness, but it's balanced with respect for your what you stand for and what you bring. So it's not indulgent kindness, is what you're saying.
No, it isn't. And I always say that if you are prepared to listen to somebody, whether they're a customer, whether they're a colleague, or whether they're a manager within the dynamic of the professional environment you work in, just be kind. Be
Mm.
kind, be honest, be transparent, and be humble. and work really hard. I mean, there's some very simple lessons in life there, of course there are, but I just think if you are able to deliver those sort of 4 core points, it's very difficult not to respect somebody if they're in that sort of guise.
Yeah. They're easily used words, but they have so much discipline, I would say, to actually practice them in life.
Mm.
What I wanted to go back to before we kind of move your career forward to sort of where you're finding yourself working now. There was something you said about the sentiment for people, and I want to sort of really dig a little bit deeper in terms of your sort of model of yourself in the place of work and the place of community that holds your way of being now together. What is that? What is in the centre of that sentiment that you hold for what you want for others and yourself in that work setting?
It, wow, that's a difficult question, isn't it? And much of what I have experienced through my career has come about through lessons that we talked about, listening to others
Mm,
and getting it wrong. Don't be
mm,
frightened to get it wrong. Understand and learn from the fact that you've made a wrong decision is really powerful, and that sort of shapes you. I think that's important to shape you, because if you have the discipline to learn from the things we've suggested you learn from, that will change your aspirations in life, and it will have you reassess that plan that we talked about. And I think for me, it was really important. So I talked about having some motivation from the community in the little village that we had our restaurant in. And it was incredibly motivating and powerful, where I would walk through the village to the restaurant, and I'd be greeted by some of our customers who were walking there, who were really pleased to see us. And they were pleased to see us because we'd created something that was unusual and met their expectations, because I'd bothered to listen to them in the first instance. And that grew quite a following, as I talked about. And that was incredibly motivating for me, that somebody I didn't know would wave at me across the street and say something simple like, "We must come in for dinner. It'd be really nice to see you. We've heard great things." Now, what does that mean? You know, we've heard great things. What does that mean? It's not
mm,
people crossing over the street, looking away, thinking, we don't want to have any eye contact with James because we don't want to engage in a conversation as to why we wouldn't be there. I felt we had created an environment where we would listen to our customers, learn from them, and develop a product that met with their expectations. And it all started. We when we launched the restaurant, our price point was very accessible for most. We felt that that was a really positive thing to do in the village, because we just didn't know how much disposable income there was in the village. And of course, as the reputation grew and as we started to become more popular, our menus developed based around what the customer was asking me. So directly, somebody would say, "Well, that was a lovely chicken dish, James. I wonder if you could put some lamb on the menu or something with some of those lovely Middle Eastern flavors." And I said, "Well, it's going to double the price." "Well, that's fine. That's
mm.
absolutely fine. That's no problem at all." So the evolution of something in simple terms for us was very valuable, because we were listening to what was being asked of us, and we were providing a product that met with their expectations. So our average spend quadrupled in the first year.
It feels that you just stripped it so simply back because again, you and I sort of having design menus and customer service experiences. Sometimes you get pulled into a world of complexity. And what was so successful there is you just stripped it all back and said, the people that I'm here to create experiences for, I'm just taking and receiving their simple guidance and not making it more complicated than it needs to be. They want lamb with a Middle Eastern flavour. We'll find a way. It feels
And
that's what I'm really celebrating here is we make things far too complicated.
I think we do, absolutely we do. And that's based around not necessarily understanding what the customer wants and
Mm,
feeling around in the dark. And I think if you've got a mechanism that allows honest, transparent, and direct feedback from the customer, then you can provide a product that meets with their expectations. It's very simple model, very simple model. And if we can sort of
mm,
delve into some of the online review capabilities that we know are out there at the moment, whether it be whether it be reviews, whether it be online reputational comments, whatever it is, the 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 potential to truly understand what the customer wants in an environment is accessible. It's
mm.
getting to the core of that now. For us, it was easy. We could have a conversation, direct conversation with our customers. But as a business scales, it's much harder to really truly understand um, what not only feedback but what direction the business needs to go in. And I think that's a huge lesson, that if you can invest time and energy and um, honesty into gaining customers' true levels of feedback, I think you're halfway there, because you've always got a reference point. Then you've always got a point to go back and say, well, we've listened, we've understood what you've said, and we've reacted. And that
Mm.
generates tremendous support for the nature of a business, I found anyway.
Yeah, it's a wonderful message for those that have careers in the service sector, to just strip it back to that simple linear chain of offer something, be willing to learn, have the humility to hear what they're saying, and then put that product out there, and then you grow at some pace. And I know it's a tough environment to be in hospitality at the moment, but this is our route to for those in that sector to navigate it.
And
But let,
sorry, it's easy to theoretically talk about the right angle to address some of these challenges, but it is relatively easy if you can incorporate some innovation in there. And the innovation is, I don't know how many times we've gone to hospitality businesses, and I'm talking generally about hospitality. It could be hairdressers, it could be a retail store. It's still hospitality. You're still dealing with customers.
mm,
And it's how you're made to feel, isn't it? How do you feel when you
yeah.
set foot in that door? And if it's a positive environment and it exceeds your expectations, you're going to be thrilled, and your
Mm.
expectations are going to be exceeded. That for me is the basis of simple business, and delighting
And the
your
question,
customers, and all those things we talked about.
yeah, and the question I kind of wanted to add in this, and it's really sort of focusing on the area of customer service and hospitality, is in this world of digitalization where lots of things are, human interactions are being replaced by QR codes and ways that avoid it. What's your sense of how much human connection needs to remain at the heart of service, just as at this moment in time, where for reasons of financial benefit, there's been quite a sort of strip back of the human facets of it. I just wonder what your personal view is on that in this world of service.
I think it's a fascinating question, and I talk a lot about that. And again, it goes back to expectations. I think if you are trying to create efficiencies within a product line, whether we talk
Mm,
about a delivery of service, whether we talk about that as a product, whatever we might look at it as, efficiency is around getting the delivery right, in my opinion.
mm,
So, irrespective of what contact points along that journey happen, if the product meets the expectation of the customer at the end of it, then nothing matters. Everybody's really delighted. The issue we have in the hospitality world is there's plenty of opportunity down that scale to get the product wrong.
mm.
And that might be an expectation issue, it might be a quality issue, it might be a price issue, it might be any number of different things. It's how you recover that product expectation that's important. And I think in many cases, and I'll talk about an environment that I was involved in, I think in many situations you can actually turn that around to a positive. So I always say to anybody that's learning, I said, do not be afraid to apologize. If you get something wrong, then take responsibility for it as soon as you can. Part of my career, and we'll talk about it in a second, part of my career was involved with the tourist board many years ago, and consulting on hotel grading programs. So after the restaurant business, we moved into some consultation around measuring hospitality expectations, and that would be through accommodation transactions, that could be through restaurant experiences, whatever it was. It fascinated me, and it was before the introduction of online reviews, but it absolutely fascinated me, learning from my restaurant experience what made a customer return to a product, whether a restaurant or hotel. What was it? And I think in simple terms, it was around their expectations being exceeded. So we talk a lot about expectations. So we talk a lot about marketing, PR, and setting clients' expectations accurately rather than exceeding them. And I think too many PR messages are falsely presented because they over exceed the expectation. So the experience I had was I arrived at a hotel, and I was consulting for them. They didn't know who I was, so I was unannounced, as you see on the TV, and I was presented. It was in Cornwall, actually. I arrived with my baggage, and the hotel operator called over the doorman who picked up my bags and presented them on the trolley and was taking me to the hotel room. As I got to the hotel room, he apologized. He said, "I'm terribly sorry." He said, "Your television isn't working in your hotel, in your room, sorry." He said, "But we're on it. The engineers are on their way. They should have it fixed for you in just a second." So I arrived in the room with this very nice gentleman, and he was telling me all about what was going on in the area, things to do, what I could expect for dinner, and so on. So the engagement that I had was tremendous, and I hadn't expected that. Within 2 minutes of this conversation, the doorman said, "Well, what we've done is we've given you a bottle of wine, Mr. Foice, for your trouble. The TV should be working in the next 15-20 minutes, but we didn't want to cause you any problems." So with that, the engineer arrived, leant over the television, seemed to fix it. Within 2 minutes, it was all done. So I was delighted, absolutely delighted with that experience. And when I met with the hotel general manager the next morning, coincidentally was the same guy that took me to the room. And I said to him, "Fantastic." I said, "What you did there was absolutely brilliant." He said, "I didn't know who you were. You hadn't been here before, and I wanted to know more about you. Had I done that in the guise of the general manager of the hotel, you would have thought that there was a problem and we were over committing to you. So I pretend to be one of the members of staff at the door." He said, "There was nothing wrong with your TV." He said, "The engineer arrived, plugged the aerial back in, and we were done. But from my perspective, I'd understood who you were, what you were doing here, what your budget was, where you chose to eat, what your level of interests were. And it was an incredibly powerful message to me
Mm.
around understanding your customer, presenting a problem, solving the problem before the customer even knew about it, and recovering the situation with a very cheap bottle of wine that, in fact, I didn't drink. I think I took it home with me. So, what an incredible life lesson that was.
So powerful in terms of what this gentleman understood was, even if it wasn't the textbook experience they wanted to offer, the fact that he invested knowing you and
Mm,
wanted to engage with. I think it's this dimension of, you talked about the product. The product isn't just the hotel room or I think it's the whole package of human interactions that form part of it too. And he stepped in fully.
mm.
And I think that's long been my belief around service, that when we make it simply the commodity and not the relation experience as well, we're missing a trick.
And your question to me, and I've sort of answered it in a very long-winded way, but your question was, how important do I think contact points are in that journey? Well, of course, being a hospitality, or basing my whole career around hospitality, I can see the value in engaging positively with customers, whether that's a difficult message to give them or whether that's a very positive interaction. It does differentiate the product from others that don't go quite that far. And we talked some time ago about an experience I had when I was traveling with British Airways. And I share this a lot as well because it was fascinating. I think British Airways in the early 90s were working very hard to engage with their high net worth clients. So these are the guys that were traveling first class and Concorde in all those days, who were
Mm-hmm.
also responsible for big budgets within their companies. So they obviously, British Airways felt the need to get to know these clients well, along the same lines that I just talked about in the hotel world. And I was checking in for a flight to New York late one evening, and in front of me there was a chap that was also checking in for the same flight, and I was listening over. And the poor reservation agent, who was absolutely brilliant, had to tell this chap that unfortunately his first class seat on the flight, the last flight of the day, the last wide body flight of the day to New York, wasn't available. And the disproportionate reaction of this traveller was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. He was furious. He was shouting at the gate. He said, "But I've paid all this money for first class. I want to travel first class." And this agent let him rant, and her body language was absolutely fantastic because she wasn't aggressive, she wasn't closed to his conversation. She let him go, and then she said, "But sir, if you'll let me finish, She said, we've got you on a flight that leaves half an hour later that actually gets you into New York 2.5 hours earlier. And you could see the realization on this guy's chap that actually he'd been upgraded onto Concorde. And that for him was a life-changing moment. And to see the expectation that he had, that he thought that he was going to travel in a class of less comfort than he had originally booked. In other words, he was going to be downgraded. But he was actually upgraded onto Concorde. It was the most masterful lesson I think I've ever seen. And he was beyond delighted with that. And we've seen that. How many times have we seen that? Simple things. Give them a larger table at a restaurant. Give them a view. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. And I think it's the confidence of the person handling that situation to access all the solutions that are available to you. It's kind of that remit to be able to go beyond just what the manual might say you can do, can make a really game-changing customer service experience. Let's fast forward to how career is sort of taken. So the hotel evaluation and that area of interest for you pre all the world of TripAdvisor and other things that we rely on now set your career into a slightly different direction. I'd love to hear from you where that took you.
And thank you. Yes, it certainly did. And it was a direction that I wasn't anticipating. And that's one of the other lessons I think that people need to be ready in life for. That if that aspiration or the life plan isn't met or is diverted for whatever the reasons, be open to recognize it, being open to explore new opportunities all the time. It's very powerful. So I met as part of the consultations and the work I was doing around trying to measure hospitality experiences, I met a fascinating chap who was running a number of service departments in London. And he said to me, we run a trade body. Our trade body represents the service department sector in the UK. Come and do some work with us. And I was very open to that. I knew a lot about service departments through my accommodation consultations, but I hadn't really understood what the product was. So I joined as a consultant the Association of Service Department Providers, and that was in 2011. And tried to understand a bit more about what the service department world was, and it was very much delivering a bespoke, furnished product to business travellers, so those that were travelling with their business, staying for longer periods of time in different markets around the world. And it was fascinating, and it was growing very quickly. So I enjoyed it, the consultation period, and I had discussed the benefit of my involvement, or what I thought I could bring to the association, to the chairman and his committee, and they offered me the opportunity to run it for them, which I was delighted to do, and that was in 2012. So I bit the hand off, and I started developing and bringing the team together to support me create a trade body, a trade association for the service department world effectively, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And that was 14, nearly 15 years ago. And my aspirations were to be involved for a couple of years, no more than that. I thought that after that I'd go back to the day job. Who knew the airline business was calling me again? I wanted to go back there. I still had a love of travel and working with people in the sector, but this just seemed to hit a spot that I couldn't walk away from. And here we are now, 14 years on. I'm a lot older, and we'll talk about that journey specifically around my personal health and well-being in that journey. But it was wonderful, and we grew, and we grew. The sector continued to grow, and we now have member organizations operating in 27 countries who operate, goodness me, I don't know how many, 200, 300,000 apartments globally, providing product to the business traveller predominantly as and when they grow. So we think that we've put the term service departments on the map. We think that people understand what service departments are now more than they did then. And we're working with government at the moment to try and get some of the legislative restrictions that our members are governed by adjusted and recognised, so we can work more cohesively with policymakers in different markets around the world. It's great fun. It's demanding in every respect, but those core lessons that we've talked around in terms of understanding people, working with people, learning, continuing to learn from people, continue to be there and challenge me on a daily basis. And I absolutely love it.
And that additional life lesson was when this complete left field idea came on, you just said yes.
Yeah,
And
complete, complete.
go with that ride and not allow a predetermined plan to sort of deny you that new opportunity.
Yeah. And don't, I keep talking about money. Don't let the financial aspirations cloud your decision
Mm,
making. It's important. We know it's all important.
mm,
We have to exist. We have to provide for our families. We have to do all of that. It's really important, but don't let that aspiration cloud your decisions, because I think sometimes if you can truly enjoy what you're doing, the rest often follows.
So if you were solely
Often.
to make a decision around a financial package, you may forfeit all the other delights of work that are there if you allow that to be your leading factor
And
in
I
that
don't want
decision.
people to think that I'm being naive when I say it's not about money. It absolutely is
Mm,
about money, but I use the word cloud your decision. It's part of the
mm,
decision, but don't let it be your entire decision.
yeah, love that.
Mm.
And you hinted that personal life has
Mm.
taken its own course as well, as this career you were making sort of significant inroads to this world of service departments and giving it the legitimacy of the platform at government and at sort of trade levels. But life has changed for you.
It really has, and it's an important thing. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, because um, I've been very fortunate in my career. I've experienced a lot of things, and one of the things that wasn't on that plan was a health challenge. And I'll talk about this because I do quite publicly, and it's really important for me to have the platform to be able to raise awareness of certain things. So in my story, April last year, so this is 14 months ago, I went to the doctor, and it was a routine follow up. And the doctor said to me that he was a little unsure about a couple of things and sent me off for a blood test. And that blood test was a PSA blood test, which was checking on my prostate condition. And within a couple of days, the results had come back, and it was alarming because my PSA levels were particularly high. And this stopped me in my tracks, as you hear people talk about the full Chris Hoy. Somebody else has referred to this as, which is fascinating. And I didn't know this was a first part of my life that I felt I had little control over, and it was running away from me. So I took a lot of advice. Be careful what you read through Google when it comes to health issues, would be my first recommendation. Take advice from medical experts. But even so, my PSA results were off the scale. So effectively, for those that will be going through this, my PSA was 148, which for a man my age is significantly higher than it was, and would indicate, under the circumstances, that I had metastatic prostate cancer. So they put me on the 2 week pathway, which was, they being the NHS in Cheltenham, put me on the 2 week pathway, and they were absolutely fantastic. They referred me to all sorts of different consultation organisations, to Prostate Cancer UK, to Macmillan, all sorts of stuff. So I read and I absorbed as much information as I could. I went through my other tests, but every scan that could possibly have, biopsies, to get the full picture. And when I had the full picture, it took me about 3 months after that, I realised that I had incurable stage 4 prostate cancer. And that was of April last year, which for me was not part of the plan. And it wouldn't be many other people. We have the aspirations, professional aspirations and personal aspirations in life. And at no point do you think, well, actually, I'm going to have to deal with this. But I had to deal with this. And we took a lot of advice. My family, my friends, my professional colleagues, and I were absolutely incredible support network around me. Allowed me time to reflect on what I was going through, and recognize that there were a number of options. And those options we researched, understood, and I chose to go through 5 months of chemotherapy, a month, 20 sessions of radiotherapy, and I am now permanently on hormone therapy, which is minimizing the growth of testosterone in my body, which is the fuel for prostate cancer. And effectively, if that diminishes, then theoretically the cancer won't grow. So that's where I am, and that was 14 months ago. My professional network has been truly remarkable through all of this process. I think it's rocked quite a lot of people because I'm relatively young, although I don't look it, and I'm told that medically, that a man of my age to have such severe aggressive prostate cancer is quite unusual. They chose to throw everything at me, which is fantastic. The good news is that my last check, which was 2.5 months ago, my PSA, which is my prostate specific antigen, which is the enzyme that's created from the prostate, was below 1, 0.4, which means it's under control completely.
It's responded to treatment.
Which means it's responded to treatment, it's under control, and we've used the word remission for now. So I'm very quick to tell people that it's incurable. I'm very quick to tell people I'm in a great place. And I've had 15 months to reflect on all of this and work with some incredibly motivating and inspirational people who are also going through such a big challenge. So the reason I wanted to bring it up in this discussion was because I believe there's a lot of other people, and men and women, that potentially claim that it won't happen to them and put it on a back burner and won't go and get checked out. And for men, certainly black men, 1 in 4 will get prostate cancer. The community of men in the UK, 1 in 8 will get prostate cancer. So it's very likely that it will affect many people that are listening to this, that will see this, even us.
So there's a message of not taking your gift of health for granted and being more vigilant, not to rob you of kind of the moment and where you're at, but just have higher vigilance for your well-being.
And just be aware. Just go and get checked out. And for me, the call for routine PSA screening is very important, and I ask as many men as possible to go and get checked out. But listen, it's really a serious message. It's very scary when people hear me talk about it. I've had nearly 15 months to come to terms with this. I'm okay. It's under control for now. We've got lots of great things to look forward to. It's very positive. And what it's done for me, it's allowed me to reflect on all of those things that I've experienced in life, that I've now been able to put into some kind of context and share a little bit of them with you today. So it's a very powerful message. It's a very powerful message. And I see myself as being incredibly lucky that I'm able to reflect on that.
Well, I'm hearing the appreciation that you might not have had for any other reasons of your professional network. You were working with them and enjoy the enjoyment of the social interaction, but suddenly, because of this, their role in your life stepped up so many notches, and that's really sitting with me in terms of the value of our professional network, and to appreciate that more than maybe we might do when we're just going through the normal rhythm of life. So I'm hearing that loud and clear.
Right. And I underestimated how powerful that was until I became unwell. And for me, it was a profound experience, and I don't use that word very often. I underestimated how important the collegiate professional relationship is in any dynamic. I completely underestimated how important that was. And this again, we talk about opportunities to learn. Never underestimate the impact one has on their professional network.
The impact you have in their lives, and in return what they have brought for you, because I've seen some remarkable footage that you've shared in terms of how they have been there for you at such a human, caring, sort of business aside level. They just want you to be supported.
Completely. And I'm very humbled, beyond humbled, at the impact of that and what that has allowed me to do. Now I'm back at work. I was always working through my treatment as well, but back at work full time. We have a lot coming on. Um, but the engagement that I've seen now within the network of many thousands of people within our associations group, and focusing on what's important and the need to try and deliver for those individuals and professional organizations is phenomenal. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's really powerful, really powerful.
Uh, sort of the final question, because I think you've kind of shared with us along the way some really important life lessons that I'll do my best to try and honour and summarise at the end. But the question that sits with me now, you talked in terms of the customer service experience about having clarity of perspective, i.e. what is really appreciated and focusing on that and not getting sidetracked. You talked about in career having the clarity of perspective in terms of what to choose career for and not chase solely money, and have those other things to be valued. I want to know sort of in totality of life now, this very profound, humbling, searching time of life for you,
Mm.
what you've learned in terms of perspective for life. I know it's such a big sort of statement, but I can't think of anyone who would be able to comment on it more succinctly than you.
No, that's very kind, and I'm, as I said, I'm fortunate that I'm able to reflect on this now, given I've had a life changing diagnosis. It changes everything, and even 2 years ago, when I was focusing on what happens next in my professional career and development, I hadn't been able to contextualize the importance of stopping, reflecting on where you are, and being able to celebrate, however small they are, the successes that you've achieved during this period. And that, for me, is massively important. And it's a lesson I've learned in the last couple of years that whilst that journey, that plan, that aspiration one might have, if you don't take time to stop and celebrate elements of success, however small, you can't measure the entire success spectrum properly. So for me, it's been very easy because I've stopped. The simple things of having a walk into the field, into the along the river with the dogs, sitting on a bench and just reflecting on my health, is massive. And being able to enjoy the simple things in life that I knew were important to me before this reality check, this health reality check, have suddenly become immeasurably important. Now, not everybody can understand that. And I really hope not everybody goes through the same journey that I've gone
Mm.
through, but listen and trust those that are going through it, that very simple lessons in life are really important to reflect on, because
Mm.
we're not around forever, and there are many challenges that we go through, and the pressures are building every day when it comes to professional life and economic challenges that we're all always facing. So having that ability to stop, reflect, and look at things, and I say learn from every opportunity. So when you know that you've made a decision that perhaps wasn't as successful as you wanted it to be, then reflect on that and look at how that
Mm.
could be done different next time. So it's a really tough question. I don't know that I can answer it necessarily, but
Mm.
it's for me, it's just stopping, just reflecting, and having a look at some of
Stopping
this
and being
stuff.
present. Well, you've brought to mind, and this is probably bringing together our sort of our food industry that was what brought, our joy of offering customers the most wonderful food and service experiences. There's a word that very rarely gets used, but it's come into my mind, which is to savor. We often use it in the sense of savoring a meal or savoring a beautiful wine. But I think it's about savoring everything that we have. Maybe we can make a campaign to bring back the art of savoring far more into our life, because that's what you're sharing with us. And it feels a really, really lovely sentiment to wrap this interview up with, in terms of let's all learn to savour not only the beautiful food and the beautiful drinks that we get to enjoy, but also the beautiful scenery, the beautiful friendships, and the beautiful career opportunities that we're given. Let's savour it a little bit more. That feels a lovely word to wrap this interview up, James. And all I want to say is thank you. I want to say thank you for this time, this wisdom, and this candidness that you've shared with us about all of your career, but also what's gone on for you in life. I also, and I shared this with you when we caught up for lunch recently, that I want to thank you personally for your own teaching to me at a really pivotal time, an early time of my career. I was coming in as a fresh faced out of university, wanting to make a massive impression. I was doing it at such tenacity that people couldn't even catch breath around me, because I so wanted to show the world what I was capable of, because I didn't have the perspective and maturity of life and professional life. And you taught me not only how to do my work, but you taught me to not take myself quite so seriously. And it was a very honest and a very important message that, because I had such regard for you, I allowed in, and it set me up through my career to know that whilst I can get very carried away with my passions and my enthusiasm, not to lose myself in my own intensity. So if that story just shares for others the importance for them in terms of getting that balance in life, but also listening to people in your career very early on who just care, and you have that in abundance. So thank you
Oh,
so much,
you
James.
superstar. No, thank you, because that's really important. And something I hadn't talked about through all of this is trying to have fun through all of
Yeah.
the professional elements of life. And I think we did. I
Oh,
continue to. I hope you do as well. If you can laugh and enjoy working and your professional life and coming together with
mm.
people, then it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, I have the vividest memories, and it's funny how you do in your career, that we were sitting opposite to each other in a building called TBC that people remember, where our desks were face to face. And I don't know, something that you said that was the most, just a little observation thing. And I honestly laughed to the point I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was so taken by the humour of that particular moment that it's the act. I can't even remember the joke, but it was the laughter that we had, and it just felt joyous. And I really savour those kind of memories in my career more than I can some of the other stuff that gets often more talked about. So
Well
thank you.
done.
Thank you for
Thank
being the
you.
human you are, and I really really appreciate it. I hope there might be some part twos to these conversations, because I think there's more to explore in terms of those wisdom messages for life. But I'd love to wrap it up there with a huge thank you.
It's a great
T-
pleasure. Really enjoy
take
talking to you. Thank you very much.
take care, James.